Thank you for joining me for lesson 62 of, of Sefer HaMitzvos. And today we are still going over positive mitzvah number 153, the mitzvah regarding calculating the months and the years, which comes from Exodus 12:2, which states this month shall be for you as the beginning of months or the head of months. And um, I mentioned yesterday that this mitzvah is done by the Supreme Court of Israel, um, and that it's kind of a participation between the people and the court. The court calculates out ahead of time when the new month should be beginning, and then they wait for the testimony that comes from the people. On when they see the moon, and maybe we'll talk more about how that whole process would go if you were a witness. Perhaps I'll talk about that because we've got a lot of days that we can discuss different aspects of this mitzvah. But I mentioned how it's not up to each person to decide when the year begins, when it or when the months begin, etc. We are able to, count out the Shabbos, and we're all on the same page regarding when the Shabbos is, hopefully, though there's some weird opinions out there that are not Jewish. Um, but this mitzvah requires the Beis Din Hagadol, the Supreme Court, to um, to sanctify the months. Otherwise, everybody would be on their own month. Some people would be having a leap year when nobody else is having a leap year. Some people would be a day ahead or a day behind, or maybe 2 or 3 days ahead or behind of everyone else, and it would just be chaos. And if you think about that, there are penalties in a in when there's a nation, a Torah-based nation of Israel, with the temple standing and everything. There are real ramifications for having the wrong day. You show up with your Pesach offering on the wrong day, it's not going to work. You can't just decide that this is Yom Kippur according to my calculations, and show up at the temple and expect that the high priest is going into the Holy of Holies for you. So there were a group of people who were known as the Karaites, and there even still are, but that Rambam kind of interacted with and spoke against. And Karaites, that these were like the sola scriptura Jews of his time, and they're less common now, though for some reason they've kind of become popular, or at least certain ones have become popular in the Hebrew Roots movement, which is unfortunate. But the Karaites were kind of like the modern day Sadducees. They're sola scriptura. They don't. They just they kind of wing it and go on their own. They don't go um, by any historical observance. People talk badly sometimes about traditions and things like that, but that's the historical witness of how these mitzvahs are performed. And it's profoundly ignorant to think that we know better than those who came before us. Anyway, so the Karaites, they would decide that they would go out and spot the moon. They would They would look at the barley and decide when Nisan would start, etc. And this is not correct. This is actually a form of rebellion against uh, really against the way these mitzvot have been always interpreted. So, how then do we keep months and years now that we don't have this situation where we've got witnesses coming before um, the Sanhedrin and saying, hey, I saw the new moon at such and such a time, at this place in the sky, etc. Um, that how do we, if that's the way it's supposed to be done, that's how it's sanctified. If you need a high court to sanctify the month, then how are we continuing to say that we're observing months and years? And the answer to that is we are actually um, still using the calculations that the Supreme Court of Israel was using back during the time that the temple stood, and so we're continuing to use those same calculations. And even though we don't have the witness of the people, in fact, the witness of the people was mainly to like fine tune the calculations that the court used to decide when to sanctify the months. So we're actually upholding the Torah by upholding the calculations of the court because it's for them to to sanctify those months. It's not actually for us to decide when those months are. And there's no rabbi today that is off on their own deciding, how these things should be done. We're basing our observance firmly on the second temple observance of the months and years. And that's why we have the authority to declare when those months are. So we'll talk more about this tomorrow with God's help. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day in every way.